This one's for all the parents out there who need stitches, who are tripping over themselves, who are feeling stressed and exhausted. You are not alone. You are not alone. I am not alone. One report found that more than half of parents say that they feel burnt out. And another survey found that 66% say the demands of parenthood make them feel isolated and lonely. It is a problem big enough that the U.S. Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy, has called parental stress an urgent public health issue. Grace Bastidas is the editor-in-chief at Parents and joins us now with tips to prevent parental burnout. Grace?
Yes, good morning.
We're so happy to have you here. Is burnout a real thing, or are we just weaker than the parents before us? What is happening?
Parental burnout has always existed in some shape or form. The biggest difference with our generation is that we're talking about it, so awareness. And this generation of parents feels that pressure to constantly engage, entertain, educate their kids, and somehow they are asking themselves, am I doing enough, right? And how do they know this, or how do they compare themselves? By looking on social media and what other parents are doing and coming away like they're somehow falling short. So social media and technology plays a role when it comes to this generation, because that's where we go for that comparison culture.
But so parents are under different pressures than prior generations, because we spend more time with our kids, and we're expected to, than parents of an earlier generation, even if we're working full-time jobs and a parent wasn't back in the day. It's a remarkable amount of just self-pressure, and I think it's anxiety about how the kid's going to do. Everyone wants their kid to thrive. We're not sure what kind of world it's going to be. How do people contain that? That's tough.
Well, they're also worried about their kids on social media, protecting their kids. And, going back to technology, it's like
time.
If you work outside of the home, there's that expectation that you're always going to be on, that you're responding to email. So there are high expectations, but most of that we're putting on ourselves. So I think we have to take a step back and recognize that.
I don't think my mom raised 3 kids by herself. My dad, in all, has 7 kids. They never felt or looked like they were having parental burnout.
But they weren't talking about it the way we are, right?
Yeah.
So this is a topic that, as you mentioned, the Surgeon General flagged. We're talking about it here. We talk about it at home, at work.
So what do you think parents could do to minimize burnout and maximize peace?
Well, one of the things you can do if you have a partner is divvy up those responsibilities. Schedule a regular check-in with your partner to see what needs to get done and how you can divide that up. Put it on a whiteboard, a shared family calendar, and whoever's doing the task, let them do it. Don't micromanage.
Yeah, let them do it their way.
Exactly.
Say no more often. Is that no to the kids, no to the spouse, no to the extra activity on a Saturday, the extra enrichment event? Say no to what?
It's no to everything. You have to weigh what you can do, what's realistic. If they're asking you to bring in cupcakes, don't make them from scratch.
No.
Go buy them. You can say no. You can find different ways, and you can outsource certain things. So it's just kind of being in the moment, not feeling that pressure or that guilt that you should be doing X, Y, or Z.
And then when someone's in real trouble, when should a parent seek help if they're really, overloaded?
So burnout is a state of just mental, emotional, physical depletion. So if you feel like that, if you're increasingly irritable and feeling disconnected, isolated, maybe doubting yourself as a parent, talk to somebody. Find support. Talk to your partner, a friend, a family member, even a therapist. Also, carve out time to reset is important, even if it's a 10-minute walk around your neighborhood, just a shift of perspective. And then, again, going back to guilt, swapping that guilt out for gratitude and focusing on what you got done versus what you didn't accomplish.
I love it.
I love Parents. Whenever I see the brand, I know it's going to be good information. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Grace. Appreciate it. So, you might know the phrase F around and find out, meaning if you step out of line, Godspeed. Because now millennials, some of whom feel defeated by so-called gentle parenting, are turning to this old school, no-nonsense approach of our parents and grandparents. Here's how the Wall Street Journal described it. Didn't feel like having lasagna for dinner? Survive until breakfast. Left your toy on the floor again? Go find it in the trash under that lasagna you didn't eat. Well, we wanted to call in a pro who has studied parenting all over the world, analyzing what does not work and what has worked for thousands of years. I am a fangirl of author Michaeline Doucleff, who wrote Hunt, Gather, Parent, also known as The Bible in My House. To research the book, she traveled to far-off villages with her rambunctious toddler and lived to tell the tale. Michaeline, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great to have you.
So in your book, you spent some time with the Mayan in Mexico, the Inuit in the Arctic Circle, and the
Hadzabe in Tanzania,
in Tanzania, to study how these ancient civilizations have reared their children successfully. What do you think about this kind of new old trend of F around and find out?
So there is no doubt this is an ancient tool that parents everywhere have used for thousands of years. It's timeless, and they still use it different flavors. And you know, it gives American kids something they sorely need: agency, autonomy, opportunities to take responsibility. So the classic example is a kid who doesn't want to put on a coat in the morning, even though it's cold or raining. You know, many parts of the world, parents would ask twice, 3 times, and then say, okay, experience that for yourself. And this lets children learn how to think, how to take responsibility, and become self-sufficient humans. I think it's great.
What would you say to people who think it sounds harsh, it sounds cruel,
damaging
it sounds
to kids?
damaging, all those things?
Well, like all parenting tools, you don't want to take it too far, right? You have to do it right. And I think, in my mind, we don't want to think about it as like the big F. We can think about it as like a little F. So fiddling around and finding out, futzing around, so that when the stakes are really low, the mistakes don't really matter. So like in the kitchen, giving a child a chunk of onion and a dull knife and have them say, you know, cut this onion, and then let them fiddle around, explore, experiment. And this is how kids grow. This is how they learn. So I think this little F is going to be much more effective with kids because it's a slower, gentler way of doing it.
So years later, I still remember parts of your book vividly. You start out, you were interviewing a mother, a Mayan mother, and it's like 7:30 in the morning. Her 10-year-old wakes up, walks past them, and starts doing the dishes, and you go, what is happening?
Yes.
What is the secret? So can you just give us your top tip that you learned from the Mayans, from the Inuit, from the Hadzabe?
Yes, so I have 3 rules that I use all the time in my life. So number 1, never argue with a child. Around the world, adults never argue with children. They don't nag, negotiate, debate, nothing. If you feel like you're gonna argue, put your hand on their shoulder and say, you know what, I'm not gonna argue with you, walk away. If they're in danger, fix the situation. Number 2, include children in your chores. I'm not talking about their chores, making their bed, they're cleaning their room. Your chores, cooking, cleaning the house, doing the laundry. This is so key to raising responsible, but also proud and happy kids. They want to be involved in our lives. Number 3, be quiet. In America, we instruct children, command them, praise, feedback all the time. And this is so stressful for a lot of kids, but also it's ineffective. I tell parents, look at your phone, give yourself 20 minutes, and in that time period, say 1 command to the child. Try it. It will reduce conflict and stress, and I'm telling you, your children will start loving you.
And then if they don't follow the command and the 20 minutes are up, then the toy goes in the trash?
Well, you know, there's so many tools out there besides talking. You know, we try to fix everything with talking, and we can't. You know, for especially little kids, they don't know what we're saying. You can give them a look, you can take action, you can gently, you know, guide them in the right direction. So many parents stay quiet and watch.
So you do all this?
I do a lot of her things. I take kids to the window to calm them down and take them outside. That's helped a lot.
Huge.
So many things. I've taken advantage of their natural desire to help, which you talk about in the book. So often we're like, no, you're gonna mess it up. Let them do it, and then you have a little army helping you at home. Quickly, your new book, what's it about?
So my new book comes out in March. It's called Dopamine Kids, and it's about the times in our life now that these ancient tools don't work. So screens and ultra-processed foods. You need a whole new playbook for these.
Man.
So
Speaking my language, Michaeline. So excited for that book. And the other book we were talking about, Hunt, Gather, Parent, is out now, wherever you buy your books.
It's a battle many parents wage with their children on a regular basis. How much is too much screen time? Nearly 3/4 of kids get their first phone by the age of 12, and they spend on average more than 5 hours a day on their devices. Clinical psychologist Dr. Cheryl Ziegler is here. She is the author of the book, The Crucial Years, The Essential Guide to Mental Health and Modern Puberty in Middle Childhood. Good morning, Dr. Ziegler.
good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Have you back.
Now, you say that this issue comes up with every single parent, regardless of what they originally came to see you for. What are the main negative effects of screen time when you look at it through your practice?
Yeah, so I run a private practice, and no matter what the reason why they originally came, they will eventually get to screens, how it's impacting their lives. So what we know is that kids are spending so much more time inside than they are outside, half the amount of time that their parents did when their parents were kids. So that means that they are on a screen and alone. So when kids are on, what we know is that they have double the risk. If they spend over 3 hours a day on a screen, they have double the risk of depression, loneliness, and it goes on with anxiety as well. So we know that it has this consequence of you're not playing, you're not being creative with your friends, you are less social, you're more likely to have poor body image and just a lower sense of your own self. So the list is really long, so without scaring people, it's just to simply say it is not the way human beings, and especially children, were meant to develop.
Yeah, we're not supposed to be socially alone.
Right.
So what's your advice? If kids are getting it by the age 10, 12, do you have an age limit where you think they should get it or where it should start? And how should it start?
So I think that anything under the age of 12 is probably too young. We have other ways. There are parents that they say, well, I want to track my kid. Okay, there's other ways to do that. They can have a phone, they can have a smartwatch. Which is really a great way to start. They can have a phone that doesn't have internet capabilities, right? A dumb phone or a simple phone, as people put it. And you're seeing more and more of those on the market.
But some people even think 12 is too young.
Absolutely.
You should wait till at least 16.
So 16, I think, for social media.
Yes.
So that's the other thing. Sometimes we clump it all together,
Yes.
right? So there's social media, which definitely the Surgeon General thinks 16, the former Surgeon General, which I would agree. I think that's really hard to do. But if we're focused on just the first piece, because that's the first battle, is the kid wants the phone.
Because all their friends have
Then
it.
the apps and all of that are to come, but the phone, right? So if you say, well, it's to communicate, you can communicate on a simple phone or a smartwatch. And so I think parents really need to think about that before they jump in and say, okay, here's a smartphone.
What about for little kids? And you're saying...
That's what I was going to say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because,
Yes.
we're talking about 10, 12, 16-year-olds, but I've gone out to restaurants and I see kids, my daughter's 2.5 almost, and there are 2-year-olds holding iPads. And I'm proud to say that we have not introduced screens at all to our daughter. We would go out, it's Magna-Tiles or a coloring book.
I love Magna-Tiles.
They're so great.
But what if they're watching educational stuff?
We do occasionally, she'll say, what does an elephant sound like? We'll show her an elephant on the phone or on the television, but she's not hankering for it because it's not a part of her life. But what do you say to parents who say, look, I need a few minutes to myself and I just hand the screen or I don't want to disrupt people in a restaurant.
Or a few hours to myself.
A few hours, yeah,
Some parents do it.
Yeah.
Well, you have to be intentional. And that's the problem with screens. Let's say with a tablet. It can become unintentional. All of a sudden, you do. 3 hours later, you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot.
passes,
They're in their room. It's too portable. It's too easy to be at a restaurant and say, oh, it's hard to have kids at a restaurant and keep them quiet. Yeah. So you put them in front of a tablet.
I'm on a plane. I don't want them to cry.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm thinking about everybody else.
As we all see, it's in the grocery store, it's on an airplane, it's at a restaurant, it's everywhere, and that's the problem. We were talking about it in the green room before. When there's a TV in the middle of the living room, that now seems pretty benign, right? Because everybody's watching it. We're more interactive. They're not alone in a quiet, dark room.
Well, Dr. Ziegler, thank you so much. We could talk to you all day about it.
Really,
We
such
appreciate it.
fascinating
The Crucial Years is on sale now, and it is crucial information that you need.
All right, in today's Money Watch, imagine giving a credit card to a toddler.
No.
My co-hosts say, here, Gayle. That's actually what some parents are doing, though. And it's all about giving their kids a head start on establishing their credit rating. So one survey shows about 1 in 4 parents have authorized a child under 18 on their credit or debit card. National consumer correspondent Usher Qureshi looks at what parents need to know.
Are you done shopping?
No, I'm more shopping.
You want more shopping?
Shannon Ho may be playing pretend with 2-year-old Aria and 1-year-old Gemma, but the lessons this mom is teaching are real.
She likes to buy Cheerios with her credit card. Cheerios and what else? Water bottles. Fiji water bottles. That's it.
Also real are the credit cards. As babies, Aria and Gemma have 2 cards each.
I figured, why not? My parents did it for me when I was a kid, so I did the same for my girls.
She and husband Jeremy added both daughters as authorized users on their existing card accounts.
My 1-year-old has no idea what's going on. My 2-year-old, however, I do take her to Target every week to buy her cheese crackers and her snacks, and she picks 2 items. any two, and she gets to pay. She taps and pay, and we check out and leave.
Why?
5 shoes, 5 pairs for me? Okay, I'm ready.
With each tap, Arya is building a credit history, which will help determine her future credit score.
There's really no too early. The earlier, the better, right?
Financial advisor Winnie Sun says many banks, including Capital One, Bank of America, and Chase, allow kids to be authorized card users as long as they have a social security number.
Why is it so important to have a good credit score?
This is sort of your financial GPA. If you have a good one, that enables you better rates on your mortgage, better rates on your car loan. Maybe that apartment you're looking to rent is going to be advantageous to have something more attractive. And most importantly, a lot of employers are actually looking for a high credit score in order to give you that next job too.
What was their first word? Mama, dada, or credit card?
Mama.
Mama! Not credit card?
Not credit card.
Shannon says with every tap, the kids are securing their financial futures
Can you tap? Oh, good job.
and learning the value of a dollar.
It's a habit we build from a young age to spend only what you are given or what you can afford and nothing more.
If you decide to get an early start, pay your bill in full on time every month to avoid passing down a negative credit score. And pay special attention to monitoring your bill to make sure there are no unauthorized purchases. For CBS Mornings, I'm Usher Qureshi.
Seems like we're somewhat conflicted here.
I like this. I don't like the idea
one way to go.
Of teaching children at that early age about consumerism and spending, and also credit cards. Adults get in trouble with credit cards because you don't have the concept that it's actually money. You just use the card and you get something.
But it's up to the parent to teach them. What did you say, Gayle?
But I don't think they understand that, you have to work to get the money to put on the credit. I don't think that.
But if you teach your kids the value of a dollar,
it.
then maybe it's a good thing.
Or you can teach them to save.
That's a good
We
point.
have a very low
teach them to
savings rate in the
save.
United States.
There you go.
You
You're
can
right
teach
about
them
that.
to get a job and save.
In this country, you're either a buyer or a seller, but the most important thing, like you said, is to learn how to save your money.
Yes, exactly right. Research shows what many of us already know, that moms carry most of the mental workload when it comes to managing responsibilities at home. So one report found that women manage, listen to this number, 71% of family tasks, like what? Planning, organizing, and scheduling. Many women are turning now to social media to talk about this invisible labor and the very real struggles that they face.
Whenever I talk about the mental load, men will say things like, oh, that's not real. It's made up. It's just women overcomplicating things. It's just your anxiety. But when I ask women, the overwhelming majority of them will say that the mental load is crippling. It is exhausting. It is never ending, that their brain never turns off.
So true.
Yeah, they will say the mental load is real. Dr. Sue Varma is a board-certified psychiatrist and the author of Practical Optimism. Sue, you're the best person to talk to about this topic. I think most of us aren't surprised that women have more of the mental load, but I was surprised that it was 71%. Were you surprised that the number is that high in 2025?
Honestly, Gayle, I think the number should be higher because the women that I talk to, almost all of them, and I work with a lot of couples, Gayle, and this is the thing that I hear couples clashing all the time, whereas the woman says that not only am I organizing, planning, managing, but I'm anticipating for all the things that can go wrong because guess who's going to deal with the consequences of them? I am. So when the kid goes out without the umbrella and they're getting wet or they're getting sick in colds and flus and infections, who is staying home from work to stay with the kid, right? So I almost feel that like not only the cognitive overload, but the emotional overload, right? Because a child is often turning to the mother in most cases, assuming this heterosexual couple, for comfort, right? And the school is calling the mother when the child is sick, and who's taking time off from work. So all of it comes back down to the woman often.
So talk about how to handle this, because sometimes the guys will be like, well, I'm happy to do it, just tell me what you need.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to be telling you, right?
Thank you so much, Tony, for saying that, because to be able to be an equal partner, it really means getting in there from the very beginning, right? So I don't want to have to give you a list to delegate. I want you to be a part of the conversation. For example, when the school year starts, what are some of those things that have to get done on a regular basis? Because we see that the dads are involved in things that might be monthly or quarterly, looking at the finances, cutting the grass. All of these things happen at a less frequent cadence than the daily minutia. It's the minutia. I think of it as the invisible load, the invisible email box, invisible inbox,
or the motherboard of a computer that is silently putting all the different pieces of the computer together for it to function. So coming to the table and saying, what can I own? What responsibility, right? So the sports, the musical equipment, the scheduling, can I be a part of it? Can I do the pickup? Rolling your sleeves up, getting there at the dishes and unloading them before you need to be asked.
I've been married a couple of decades now, and early on in my marriage, I was not equipped with the right tools to communicate properly or even just simply ask, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Tell me about this invisible weight. So now that I can ask that, what are some of the things that she feels when she has this burden on her? What are the impacts of those things?
You know, just the fact that you're recognizing that there is an emotional fallout, right? Because women, when they don't talk about their feelings, we found in a study of a few 100,000 women, they looked at they're 4 times more likely to die during the course of this study by not expressing their feelings. So you simply showing up and saying, talk to me about what you're experiencing, which is stressed out, burdened, unseen, undervalued, underappreciated, especially for the moms whose predominant role is caregiving. They feel as if just because I'm not bringing in income, you don't see me, you don't value me, you don't love me, you don't respect me. And often the kids may say to the mom, well, you don't know what I'm going through. Have you ever walked a day in dad's shoes? Do you work? So I feel like a lot of women who are staying at home and caregiving are not getting that value. So we want to make sure we check in with them, and even just to say, what can I do to help you? Talk to me about what you're going through, and how can we prevent this as a team? Because that feeling of you're with me, you're on my side. So many times women tell me, I don't feel like I have an equal partner.
They feel isolated.
Yes.
But even when partners think that they're doing a good job, women still feel overwhelmed.
Yes.
Even if you have somebody who you think is a great partner in everything in your life, including with your children, and meeting your emotional and physical needs, they still feel that I'm the one who's overwhelmed. Why is that?
Yes.
Even when they have a great partner.
Even when you have a great partner, because, we are dealing with the emotional, women are more prone to anxiety and depression. We're more likely to have this what if thinking, to catastrophize about the worst case scenario if our kids get sick. And I can think about this trip now fondly, but there was a ski trip that I didn't get to go on with my family, and my sons went with my husband, an amazing dad, supportive partner. But the kids ended up getting frostbite because a glove fell off, a mask fell off, and guess what? Even though he's a physician, I'm the one diagnosing it on FaceTime.
On FaceTime,
yes. The face looks a little funny, and guess who's putting the antibiotic and taking them to the doctors? It's all on me.
So how do we turn it around? Somebody's listening to you right now saying, that's what's happening in my house. How do we turn it around on both sides?
Yes. So first of all, if you're going to ask your partner for more help, you cannot throw the kitchen sink at them, right? Don't say you're a horrible person, you don't love me, you're not there for me. Say, I love it when you do all these things. When you ask me how I feel, when you ask me how my day was, when you get in there and you roll up your sleeves and you're doing the dishes, when you say, you know what, I'll do the pickup today. You know what, I'll do the pickup every Tuesday, Wednesday. We love that. Take something permanently off our plate. Permanently, right? I'm going to start planning the vacations more. I'm going to do the Target runs. I'm going to start ordering the sports equipment. I'm going to be the default parent on the school's list, right? So we love that. That's music to our ears. I'm going to not give you just one day to go to the spa on Mother's Day. I want you to have a regular afternoon brunch with your girlfriends. That makes me happy.
I love these conversations because I know women are watching, but it's also for partner spouses, for men like me. So valuable. Dr. Sue Varma, appreciate you.
Scrolling through social media can be like navigating a minefield of misinformation on everything from politics to health, you name it. And that is hard enough as it is, but when it comes to parenting advice, who can you trust? The New York Times bestselling author of Crib Sheet, Emily Oster, is who we're going to talk to about all this. She's also the founder and CEO of Parent Data and has important tips on how to sort out the good advice from the bad. Emily, good morning. It's so good to see you. I love scrolling through videos. But the thing is, just because something is slickly produced and has great captions does not mean that you can rely on it for useful and truthful information online.
Yeah, so I think misinformation has a few problems for parents. One is that we know that false information gets amplified more than true information. So you're seeing a lot of false information. And then people are getting that information when they're not ready to process it. So it's coming right at them rather than them seeking it out. And that's not serving our critical thinking. And then also a lot of the false information looks like the good information. It looks like this person's a real expert when actually the studies that they're talking about are not good, are made up, are in many ways flawed.
Well, that can be really dangerous, especially when it comes to health information for kids.
It can, and I think one of the things is parents are constantly being served, here's a simple solution for a complex problem. If only you gave your kid this one supplement, their ADHD would be solved. And that causes parents to both think they're doing things wrong and also potentially to not seek out good information to solve the actual problems that they're having.
Yeah, it can be dangerous for the kids, but as you point out, it's dangerous for the parents because they think they're screwing up. And everything you're doing as a parent is high stakes and high pressure. You want to get it done and urgently. And you feel terrible when it doesn't work. So my household's been a big fan of yours since your very first book because you go to the actual research as best we can tell something and lay out an answer. People should look up all of your work. But on the fly, when you're on social media and you see something, what are some red flags to look for about that should make you think twice?
So I think one thing is to look for credentials. That doesn't always help, but some people, if somebody's the head of the AAP, they have more credentials than someone who doesn't have any of those qualifications. I think the second thing is that people should be looking for, is this person offering something where if I give them money, there's an easy solution to a hard problem? That's not usually the way that solutions work. That's not how an expert's gonna pitch to you. Comment for my supplement brand so you can solve all your problems. That's probably misinformation. I think that's a pretty good tip for a lot of people in processing some of this online information.
We were talking about the dangers of this when it comes to health. I mean, we're seeing vaccine skepticism at the highest levels at this point. What resources can parents trust out there?
So I hope that they trust me. So I have a website called Parent Data, which looks at this. But I think also things like the American Academy of Pediatrics has been really effective, particularly around vaccines, in coming out and saying, here's actually what you need to know. Here's the good information about this. And I think it is particularly hard when at the highest levels we're seeing this kind of really misinformation coming out to parents.
And the reality is on a lot of tough questions of what to do as a parent, the answer is the research is a little inconclusive and it may depend on your particular kid.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is also going to be dependent on your preferences. Even the best data is not usually bossy. Usually you can look at the data, understand what it says, and then make a decision that's consistent with the values that your family has. And I think that putting those together is important, but you do need the best data. You're not going to make good decisions if the data you have is wrong.
Why is it, do you think, that people fall so easily into these traps with these online influencers?
I think there's a clickbaitness where when we see something that makes us panic, we panic, and then we want to react to it immediately. And we all want to do exactly the right thing for our kids. And I think that's fundamentally, this comes from such a good place of wanting to be the best parent. And parenting is hard, and we're looking for the solution. If the solution says it's easy, I want to dive into that.
Yeah, especially when there's some nice music in the background.
When there's beautiful music and the person's kitchen is very clean, it's like they must know something I don't. What is it that they know?
I've given up being the best parent. I want to be perfectly fine.
Second best parenting.
Fine. Yeah, that's good.
Third best is A-okay, too. Emily Oster, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
It's a moment that they become the so-called, the term, empty nester. And the moment many find themselves asking a very big question, now what? Galina Espinoza has some answers for you this morning. She's editor-in-chief of FlowSpace, a news site dedicated to stories about women's health, which now has some articles about the next chapter for parents. This is a big topic for a lot of people, especially now a lot of people are dropping their kids off. Galina, we're excited for them, but we're also so sad for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Women in particular, you say.
Women in particular are impacted by becoming empty nesters, in part because culturally so much of their identity is wrapped up in motherhood. Tony, you were saying that you cry when you drop your kids off at sleepaway camp, and certainly parents who are more involved feel this loss more intensely. But the reality is that culturally, mothers are still viewed, and most often are, the more hands-on parent. We know the studies about emotional labor, about cognitive labor, where you're doing all the planning and the doctor's appointments and this and that. All of that suddenly just goes away. And when that stops, you're left with this question of, who am I now and what is my purpose?
Yeah, and it's not just emotions. You also say it can impact your brain, blood work even?
Yeah, we at FlowSpace always love to look at the science behind why we feel the way that we do. And there's really interesting research that shows that during pregnancy, fetal cells can enter the mother's bloodstream, and these cells remain in the woman's bodies for decades. And so when you think about this feeling of my child is a part of me, that's not just a metaphor.
It's literal.
It is literal. You are bonded at the cellular level. And so you can imagine that kind of connection.
It's a part of you literally
You
leaving.
say, I feel like my child is a part of my body. Well, you know what? Turns out they are.
Wow. Go ahead, Tony.
I was just going to say, what can women do when they have these feelings, and what can men do to help the women in their lives?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for asking about what can men do. do. And I think the most important thing to do is to acknowledge that this is happening and to talk about it. This is a transition like becoming a parent in the first place, like getting married. This is a big life milestone. And you have to connect around this and make sure that you're expressing what you're feeling and not just kind of pushing it aside and saying, like, we're going to be just fine. Because in a lot of cases, couples are not when the child leaves home.
Yeah, but how do you know when you have a problem? Because I remember feeling like an abandoned lover when Kirby left. You haven't called me. It's been 3 days.
Were you harassing him, Gayle?
No, I would say, you haven't called me. What's going on? Or I'd see something on the news in San Francisco about a car accident. Where are you? I'm in the dining hall, Mom.
Yeah.
What are you calling about? Well, I saw this accident in San Francisco. I didn't know if you had gone into this. I mean, it was just crazy making.
Yeah. Well,
so
first,
when
you are
do you
not
know?
alone. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And really, and what psychologists told Flow Space is that it can be 1 to 2 years of accepting this transition. It's much longer than I think we realize. And you have to sit in that. You have to set boundaries. So if your child
for me
is
or for
leaving
her?
home, for both of you. If it's important to you to talk to your child on the regular, make sure you're saying, I want a Sunday phone call, or we're going to, we're going to text a couple of times a week.
You
so that
say
you're
have a
not doing
plan.
that.
You
Have
should
a plan for yourself as well. You need to wake up the next day and know what you are working toward, because it's no longer about centering your child in your life.
So I have 2 sons in college. My daughter's 15, going into her sophomore year. My wife and I try to date often. We have these conversations. Man, in a few years, it's going to be just us.
Yes.
And we talk about all these things we're going to do.
Yes.
And then we take a breath, and it's quiet at the table, because it hits us at the same time. What else are we going to do with our time without our babies?
Hope you all still like each other.
That's what I'm saying. It hits us. We're looking at each other like, are we going to still like be as in love, or will we be distracted by the fact our babies
talk
are
about it. You don't have the kids there, right?
These 2 will still be in love.
Well, I know we will, but we are concerned.
It's a very real thing. In fact, the number of people age 50 and over getting divorced has more than doubled since 1990. And it's a big issue for couples. Most of those divorces initiated by women. And it's because they are looking around and saying, you know what, this doesn't work for me anymore without our children here. You've got to prepare for that.
You got to, yeah.
Yeah, men and women, because empty nesting affects men too.
Yeah,
Absolutely do. And the more hands-on you are, the more painful it's going to be.
Yeah,
so that's kind of...
but in the meantime, if your nest is not empty, this is a reminder to savor it, right?
Do all the things you want while you have the time.
Galina Espinosa, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.